Chapter 5. The party was beginning to get noisy. Not boisterous, but noisy. It was beginning to acquire that stale air of futility to which, in the end, all parties must fall victim. And there was something about it, about the sour smell of too many cigarettes, the chill of the canyon breeze through the open windows, the shrill and vacant sound of human chatter, that said it was getting late and time to go, although it really wasn't. It wasn't midnight yet. The man named Herman Dalton stretched his long legs out, slumped in the chair, the big cigar thrust into one corner of his mouth, and his hair like a new-built brush pile from his running hands through it. "But I tell you, Blaine," he rumbled, "there's got to be an end to it. The time will come, if something isn't done, when there'll be no such thing as business. Fishhook, even now, has driven us flat against the wall." "Mr. Dalton," Blaine told him wearily, "if you must argue this, you should find someone else. I know nothing about business, and even less of Fishhook, despite the fact I work there." "Fishhook's absorbing us," said Dalton angrily. "They're taking away our very livelihood. They're destroying a fine system of conventions and of ethics built very painfully through the centuries by men deeply dedicated to the public service. They are breaking down the commercial structure which has been built so carefully. They're ruining us, slowly and inexorably. Not all of us at once, but surely one by one. There is the matter, for example, of this so-called butcher vegetable. You plant a row of seeds, then later you go out and dig up the plants as you would potatoes, but rather than potatoes you have hunks of protein." "And so," said Blaine, "for the first time in their lives, millions of people are eating meat they couldn't buy before. That your fine, brave system of conventions and of ethics didn't allow them to earn enough to buy." "But the farmers!" Dalton yelled. "And the meat market operators, not to mention the packing interests." "I suppose," suggested Blaine, "it would have been more cricket if the seeds had been sold exclusively to the farmers or the supermarkets, or if they were sold at the rate of $1 or $1.50 apiece instead of 10 cents a packet. That way we'd keep natural meat competitive and the economy safe and sound. Of course, then these millions of people—" "But you do not understand," protested Dalton. "Business is the very lifeblood of our society. Destroy it and you destroy man himself." "I doubt that very much," said Blaine. "But history proves the position of commercialism. It has built the world as it stands today. It opened up the new lands. It sent out the pioneers. It erected the factories, and it—" "I take it, Mr. Dalton, you read a lot of history." "Yes, Mr. Blaine, I do. I am particularly fond of—" "Then perhaps you've noticed one thing as well. Ideas and institutions and beliefs in time outlive their usefulness. You'll find it in page after page of all our history. The world evolves, and the people and their methods change. Has it ever occurred to you that business, as you think of it, may have outlived its usefulness? Business has made its contribution, and the world moves on. Business is just another dodo." Dalton came straight out of his slump, his hair standing straight on end, the cigar dangling in his mouth. "By God!" he cried. "I believe you actually mean it. Is that what Fishhook thinks?" Blaine chuckled dryly. "No, it's what I think. I have no idea what Fishhook may be thinking. I am not in policy." And that was the way it went, Blaine told himself. No matter where you went, that was the way it was. There was always someone who tried to root out a hint, a clue, a tiny secret that might pertain to Fishhook, like a group of hopping vultures, like a bunch of peeping toms, a thirst to know what was going on, suspecting perhaps much more was going on than was actually the case. The city was a madhouse of intrigue and of whispering and of rumor, filled with representatives and operatives and pseudo-diplomats. And this gent in the chair across from him, Blaine speculated, was here to place a formal protest against some new outrage perpetrated upon some proud commercial unit by some new fishhook enterprise. Dalton settled back into his chair. He got a fresh and deadly grip upon the big cigar. His hair fell back again, it seemed, into some semblance of once having known a comb. "You say you're not in policy," he said. "I believe you told me you are a traveler." Blaine nodded. "That means you go out in space and visit other stars." "I guess that covers it," said Blaine. "You're a Perry, then." "I suppose you'd call me that. although I'll tell you frankly it is not a name that is regularly employed in polite society. The rebuke was lost on Dalton. He was immune to shame. "What's it like?" he asked. "Really, Mr. Dalton, I cannot begin to tell you." "You go out all alone?" "Well, not alone. I take a taper with me." "A taper?" "A machine. It gets things down on tape. It is full of all sorts of instruments, highly miniaturized, of course, and it keeps a record of everything it sees." "And this machine goes out with you?" "No, damn it. I told you. I take it out with me. When I go out, I take it along with me, like you take along a briefcase." "Your mind in that machine?" "That's right. My mind in that machine." "Think of it," said Dalton. Blaine did not bother with an answer. Dalton took the cigar out of his mouth and examined it intently. The end that had been in his mouth was very badly chewed. The end of it was shredded and untidy strips hung down. Grunting with concentration, he tucked it back into his mouth, twirling it a bit to wind up the shreds. "To get back to what we were talking about before," he announced pontifically, "Fishhook has all these alien things, and I suppose it is all right. I understand they test them rather thoroughly before they put them on the market. There'd be no hard feelings, no sir, none at all, if they'd only market them through regular retail channels. But they don't do that. They will allow no one to sell any of these items. They've set up their own retail outlets, and, to add insult to injury, they call these outlets trading posts, as if, mind you, they were dealing with a bunch of savages." Blaine chuckled. Someone long ago in Fishhook must have had a sense of humor. "Believe me, Mr. Dalton, it is a hard thing to believe." "Item after item," Dalton raged. "They contrive to ruin us. Year by year they take away or cancel our commodities for which there was demand. It's a process of erosion that wears away at us. There's no vicious threat, there's just the steady chiseling. And I hear now they may open up their transportation system to the general public. You realize what a blow that would strike at the old commercial setup." "I suppose," said Blaine, "it would put the truckers out of business and a number of the airlines." "You know very well it would. There isn't any transportation system that could compete with a teleportive system." Blaine said, "It seems to me the answer is for you to develop a teleportive system of your own. You could have done it years ago. You've got a lot of people outside of Fishhook who could show you how it's done." "Crackpots," said Dalton viciously. "No, Dalton, not crackpots. Just ordinary people who have the paranormal powers that put Fishhook where it is today. The very powers you admire in Fishhook, but deplore in your own people." "We wouldn't dare," said Dalton. "There's a social situation." "Yes, I know," said Blaine. "The social situation. Are the happy little mobs still crucifying them?" "The moral climate," conceded Dalton, "is at times confusing." "I should imagine so," said Blaine. Dalton took the cigar from his mouth and regarded it with something like disgust. One end of it was dead and the other badly frayed.